Hello, good evening. In the simplest of terms, there are three main income streams for sports leagues. Broadcasting, that is sale of media rights, commercials made up of sponsorship and advertising partnerships, and even match day revenue. Your guess is as good as mine. The coronavirus has dealt a heavy blow to all these streams. Many sports people have been training, hoping that sports agents will link them up to clubs, but with the uncertainties of the coronavirus, many dreams have just been put on hold. Sports fans have now fixed their eyes on dead matches and dwelled on analysis of old games. Just when, I know you know that, when Ghana's Premier League started picking up, the virus halted everything. How can we pick up the league and other sports after the pandemic? Should Ghana's Premier League resume, just like the Bundesliga that is underway? We also know that Spain is actually saying they will do it in June. But should the game start in the empty stadia? Will games be the same without the fans and ambience in the stadia, or even the insult to some of the players?
Some of us, football, when we get our daily bread, when we chop, now everything is the low down popcorn. Charlie, this is all is pandemic.
Certainly, he's lost for words, and which is which. That was Ghana's chief drummer, Joseph Langabell. We'll hear more from him later. This show, Beyond the Lockdown, is packed tonight. That I promise you. But what's the future of Ghana's sports industry after the virus? If the big sporting disciplines are suffering, what about the lesser known sports, as we call them? How are local players surviving financially? Are local clubs able to pay salaries? We'll talk COVID-19 and its impact on sports right after the break, because I have big personalities in the industry lined up for you. Tonight on the show, the sports fan will be given the opportunity to join me via Zoom as we brainstorm on the way forward for the industry we all so love passionately. Do stay. Thanks for staying with me here on Beyond the Lockdown. Welcome back. On the Joy News channel, it's free to air on all digital platforms, also on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144. We're, of course, also live on Joy 99.7 FM at the top of the hour 8, and a dozen affiliates across the country. We're also on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitter, and other social media platforms. We are covered everywhere. This is definitely your show, so give it your full attention. And whilst at it, please get interactive. Now, let's check Ghana's COVID situation and jump straight into action at this point. So we have a total of 6,683 confirmed cases now as a country. That's where we stand with our COVID situation, 6,683 cases for COVID-19. Then our regional breakdown, we have Greater Accra 4,798, Ashanti 1,049, Central Region 299, Western Region 210. Then to the Eastern Region, we have 106 cases. Western North has 61, Volta Region 47, Northern Region has 36 cases. Then to the Oti Region, 26 cases, Upper East 26, Upper West 21, Northeast 2. Then Bono Region, we have 1. And we know that Savannah has also recorded its first case. We have 32 deaths. And of course, for recoveries, that's the good news. We have 1,998 recoveries in terms of COVID-19. Thanks for staying with me once again. We'll take a quick break. When we return, I'll give you a lineup of those who are going to help us talk about sports and the impact of COVID-19 on it right here on Beyond the Lockdown. You made the right choice. And do tell a friend to also tune in at this point. This is Beyond the Lockdown on the Joy News channel, also on DSTV channel 421 and then GoTV 144. Like I said, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. So get interactive at this point. It's time for me to introduce to you those who are going to join us for tonight's discussion on COVID-19 and impact on sports. Joining me in the studio tonight is the Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports, Curtis Perry Obla Okujeto. Good evening, sir, and welcome to Beyond the Lockdown.
Good evening, Emma.
And via Zoom also, we'll have Malco Afajino, he's the president of the Ghana Table Tennis Federation. We'll also have Dr. Prince Pambo, he's a member of the CAF Medical Committee. And as advertised, the GFA president, Keto Kreku, was supposed to join us for tonight's show. We're told he's unwell and he's unable to join us via Zoom. But Samuel Enimado is the executive council member of the Ghana Football Association, able and well enough to also answer all the questions that we have when it comes to football. Herbert Mensah is president of the Ghana Rugby Association. He will also be joining us. Of course, we have a football agent, Oliver Arthur. He will also join us along the line via Zoom as well. So like I said, it's a packed show, and I promise you all the best when it comes to sports and its COVID-19's impact on it. So we'll start with you, Mr. Perry Okujeto, once again. How have you been doing? You good?
Yes, I've been well. We know that we're not in normal times. But first of all, let me say happy Eid to our Muslim brothers and sisters. It's the end of their fasting, and today has been one of special days for them. However, we all know that since the outbreak of the pandemic, we've all been trying to adjust to the new normal, like we call it. In the sports sector especially, we all know that after the lockdown, all our activities have been put on hold. All sporting activities across the country have been put on hold. And this cuts across continentally and globally as well. Yeah. So it is not as if Ghana is lagging behind when it comes to sporting activities. All our qualifiers have been put on hold. Locally, at the district levels, regional levels, and the national level, all sporting competitions have been put on hold. So if you look at the industry in general, looking at the various people who participate, in terms of, for instance, about 43 federations and counting, and these are federations that engage at all levels. Most of them operate at regional and district levels as well. So you can see the enormity of the effect that this has had on our sector. On the global level, you know that we were supposed to be preparing by now towards the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Yeah. That has been put on hold till 2021. And Tokyo is even sending the signals that they are employing about 8,000 people and cannot keep 8,000 people on their payroll until after 1 year, meaning that it is a must that in 2021 the Olympic Games are held. Then you come to our preparation. You know that Ghana is the next host of the Africa Games, and therefore as a team we've put together a committee by which I chair, and we're working towards putting together the infrastructure improvements that we need to do for the 2023 games, as well as preparatory works. So we get visits from the Africa Union Sports Council for inspection to guide us on the things to do and the things not to do. All of that has been put on hold, and we're hoping that in due course the restrictions will be eased so that we can get back to work in making sure that we are well prepared.
I know you've been in talks with the various federations that you've been saying. I know it's been back-to-back meetings on whether the games should come back, especially the Premier League, for instance. Where are we with those talks? Are we ready to bring back the game? We've seen what has been done with the Bundesliga. What kind of talk has gone on backdoor on this particular issue?
Well, there's been several levels of engagement at the ministerial level led by my minister, Honorable Isaac Isiama, and also at the federation level just even last week, we had some discussions with the president of the Ghana Olympic Committee, the president of the Paralympic Committee, as well as the president of the GFA. Mainly, these discussions are centered around where do we go from here? What is happening to the sport? What is the plight of our sportsmen and women? And how do we sort of come up with a package that will help them, for instance, steer through this period? Discussions are ongoing. We have not as yet come to a conclusion as to what exactly we're going to be doing for them, because if you look at the approach of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in tackling this pandemic, every Ghanaian everywhere has been targeted, and that is why you saw that throughout the period there has been policies that have been rolled out that we expect to touch the lives of every single individual. And I'm sure that is how come we have been able to sail through to this point, and waiting that there would be specific discussions at various sectoral levels as to what particular sector ministers and their ministries can also do in helping people within their sector alleviate the suffering that the pandemic has brought onto.
But I'm sure they're making a strong case.
Yes, they are making a strong case, and we are also considering the proposals that they have brought to us. I'm hoping that in the coming days or in the coming weeks, some decision will be taken, because these things border on finances. And knowing very well that with such a pandemic where government is not raising enough revenue, it is really, really difficult, and we have to be sure about what kind of package and how we're going to help the various players within the sector.
We'll get to hear from some of the sectors as well as an agent also on all this. But, like I said, most of this show depends on your questions that you've sent in. So I've had my take. I'm sure along the line I'll get to smuggle in some of my questions as well. But let's get into the very first batch of questions that you've already sent in at this point on Beyond the Lockdown. So this one from WhatsApp is from Bismarck Hajiman. It says, from what we have seen so far, what is our assessment to the readiness of our sports economy in dealing with shock situations like this one? Kwamina says, leagues have started in Germany and France. Okay, France have put theirs on hold. Using social distancing techniques, what plans do we have in Ghana? European leagues are close to finish, unlike here in Ghana. What are our plans to push to the end, to abridge it and declare champions from the current league result, or do a top 4 and bottom 4 in order to declare a champion? Interesting question, Kwamina. So I'm sure some of these questions also would get some response from the Football Association and all. But the first question is asking whether we have some form of system in place to deal with shock situations like this that we've seen that has hit our sports industry.
Well, first of all, fortunately, sometime last year, the Minister of Sports, Honorable Siama, inaugurated a new sports policy committee, of which I am the chairman. Okay. And the Sports Policy Committee has been meeting and working over the period. I believe that the pandemic presents a new, perspective to how we manage our sporting industry. And it is one of the issues that we have had discussions with members of the committee on how to fashion out a way to manage, such pandemics when they do occur. So it presents us quite a good opportunity to tweak policy-wise what we should be able to do in pandemic situations like this. So, however, we should know that this pandemic is being managed at the highest level, led by the President of the Republic, and health experts who guide him and and advise him on the decisions that are taken on a day-to-day basis. And the sports industry is just a subset of the various sectors that, you know, are being managed. So discussions are ongoing. The stakeholders are making a strong case that games have resumed in other jurisdictions across the world under certain circumstances and with certain protocols. And people are proposing that these protocols should be adopted here as well. I believe that in the wisdom of the president, at the appropriate time, when a decision is taken generally on public gatherings and the way we manage, you know, some of these things, including sports, when that decision is made, we in the sector would then now finalize our discussions in terms of what type of protocols we're going to use moving forward. Because you know that sports is huge business and it's huge entertainment. A lot of lives depend on the industry, and therefore, as a form of entertainment during this period, it would have been prudent for us to be able to see teams play, and as people stay home and work from home and all of that, some of these things would have been what would entertain people. However, it's not been the case. So moving forward, I believe that discussions will be ongoing, and once the health team advising the president advises that we can resume normal public life with a certain level of protocols and restrictions, then us in the various sectors will also now fashion out what we will do moving forward in managing the league, and especially looking at the fact that our league has had some ups and downs in the last couple of years. If you looked at what happened after the announced documentary, football had to go into normalization. And then during normalization, we had to play a special competition to keep football, you know, on the front burner and all of that. And then also going into an election and electing a new executive for the Ghana Football Association. And I must commend the new team for the zeal and the spirit with which they've sort of administered football in Ghana in the last few months. You've worked well so far with them. And we've worked well so far with them. And you saw how Ghanaians were beginning to warm up to the Bring Back the Love campaign, and how we all began to throng the stadium and, you know, football matches. And you saw that genuinely that love that Ghanaians used to have for football that had waned over the years was gradually coming back. Just the week before we recorded 2 cases in Ghana, the next weekend we're going to have a qualifier played here in Ghana. All of that had to be cancelled and all of that. So it tells you that football, for instance, has taken a big blow, and the pandemic has not been merciful to our football, especially at the time when we were just about picking up again. I'm hoping that with the necessary protocols that we're going to put in place, when we get back, the fans would still stay, and when we actually get to opening up the facilities for fans to go into the stadium, they'll come in their numbers, because it is definitely a cycle. The fans are important, the teams are important, and it is, you know, the coming together of the two that makes the games, you know, great. We know there's talk about the sponsorship deals and all. I'm sure along the line that will come up. There was also a question about whether we are going to adopt a top 4 or bottom 4 approach to end the league, sort of. And that's the question that came in. But I want to find out from you. I know you love your football. We'll talk about the other sporting disciplines also. Considering what has been done with the Bundesliga, for instance, there are those who are of the view in our industry that maybe we should adopt that approach also, play into an empty stadium and all. You think that is the way to go? Well, that is what some countries have adopted. And like I said before, it is important that this is managed in a holistic way. And that is why the President of the Republic is managing it the way it ought to be. You know, it ought to be. So we cannot be in isolation as a sector. We have to, you know, sort of be in the mix of what generally is being done to manage the case in Ghana. So we would have to get to a point where government decides that it is okay to have public gatherings, because you know that for a football match to take place or any sporting activity to take place, it's not just the players.
Yeah.
There are players, there's a technical team, the stadium managers, there are all kinds of people who would come together to make a football match. So yes, the option of playing in empty stadia is fine. And when we get to that point and we think that is the best option for us in terms of making our game safe, it will be one of the options that we will consider. However, as we speak, that decision has not been taken.
Okay. Well, let's go on to you now and hear more of your questions. We have a Vox also sampling your views on what you think.
My question to the FA is that what are they doing financially to sustain the football business? I mean, we've not built our commercial side. When you look at the Ghana Premier League, for instance, we only have one sponsor, which is only for the media rights and the broadcasting. But for the main tournament itself, what other financial commitments, what other financial gains are they having to give to these clubs? Because for all you know, our clubs are not in the best financial conditions. As a matter of fact, they are not in good financial conditions at all.
How are we supporting our players in this COVID-19? Is the FA, what is the direction, what is the measures they are putting in place? I think if the game is all that attractive as the Europeans could have attracted so many sponsors, said that in these difficult times you can support them.
It seems like we as Ghanaians, we're always following the trend of the overseas there, those from London and the Europeans. You understand? They have the sophisticated machines that they doing the tests and other things. You see, and the results are coming prompt. Do we have that here? Do we have that here that we want to start this? We want to go back and play this game again. Our question is, why are they bringing it?
There is a stimulus package that the government has introduced to help Ghanaians. Probably they will be given some amount to give to the clubs. So I want to ask, I know the money might not be with them now, or possibly it is not with them. So should the money, come to the FA now, how are they going to facilitate the amounts with the clubs so that they will have access to this stimulus package?
So some questions also from the streets of Kumasi, I'm told. So the issue about financially how we are sustaining football, supporting players, is also runs through. And then the stimulus package that has been announced, they've started rolling out. Does it include football clubs and all? Some of the questions that have come in.
The stimulus package we know is for small-scale SMEs, football or sports is not included in the package that is being rolled out as we speak. But like I said before, discussions are ongoing. We have received proposals from the various federations on the state of their federations and the sort of help that they may require moving forward. And like I said, we're considering, the proposals, and at the appropriate time, when a decision is taken on what particular proposals or what support would go to particular federations, those announcements will be made.
Well, but supporting players, do we know what systems are in place, at least our sportsmen and women, during this period, even though they may be at home and all? Is there a support system for them?
Well, generally, like I said before, the approach has been to target every Ghanaian everywhere, and for government to support, especially, remember during the lockdown period, a helping hand was extended to everyone who sort of needed one. Of course, we may not be able to reach every single person, but the effort, was made, and that is why the approach has been more nationalistic than, targeting sectors. However, I know that, for instance, at the cabinet retreat a couple of days back, the case was presented sector by sector, led by ministers of state.
Okay.
And these things are being considered. And I believe that at the appropriate time, when the decision is taken on the kind of support that we may need for players. Because what has happened is that we have teams, though we just returned from the Africa Games in Morocco in 2019. What happens is that in the sports calendar, the Africa Games is not a qualifier for every discipline to the Olympic Games. So what happens is that, yes, we went to the Africa Games and came back, but different federations have had to plan on different qualifiers in different parts of the continent that will take them or book them for the Olympic Games. So I remember a couple of weeks just before the lockdown, the boxers went, to their qualifiers, and then several other teams, were preparing for their qualifiers. And like I said before, even the Black Stars are playing their qualifiers and were supposed to have played a game. Remember, we played South Africa and Sao Tome a couple of months back last year, and then we were going to continue. All of that has been put on hold. The difference is that for most of our football players for national teams, especially the senior national team, the players may be abroad, some may be local. But when it comes to most of our athletes, a lot of them are local. And therefore, how do you keep these people, training, healthy, eating well, especially knowing very well that the competitions they are supposed to go to are not going to happen in a year? And therefore, you need to keep them in shape so that they do not lose their form, and so they can be able to perform well when they get out there, when these competitions actually, come off after the pandemic situation. So it is a critical thing for us, and that is why the ministry has taken interest in the discussions so far to see how we come up with a plan to sustain our athletes, to keep them in good shape, to get them to train and train and train, and to make them better, whilst they wait for the competitions ahead.
Okay, so at this point, I'll welcome our Joy FM listeners. It's the top of the 8:30, and our Joy FM listeners have just joined us together with a dozen affiliates across the country. So it's beyond the lockdown, and we are talking COVID-19 and impact on sports in Ghana especially. So we would invite our other guests via Zoom. Like I said, Samuel Enimado is replacing Keto Kweko, who is the GFA president. We are told he's unwell, but Samuel Enimado is the executive council member of the Ghana Football Association. We also have on via Zoom Mauko Afajino, who is the president of the Ghana Table Tennis Association, and then also Dr. Prince Pambo is a member of CAF medical team. But before I bring them in, we'll go for the next batch of questions. And this one is from Derek via WhatsApp. He says the clubs need to pay their players even without earnings by way of gate proceeds. What is Ghana government, FIFA, Tennis Association doing about stimulus packages for players, coaches and officials? That's from Derek. The issue about stimulus packages coming back. And we have Fifi. This one says, for the safety of players and officials, this would involve camping all players and officials in designated hotels with clear health protocols. Neither the GFA nor the clubs would have that kind of money. So what is the role of government and FIFA in situations like this? So some questions there. Today it looks like football is dominated, but we'll find a way and also bring in the other sports as well. I'm very interested in the other sports and disciplines so that we can, give it a fair share of the discussion here on Beyond the Lockdown. And Mr. Marco Afajino is via Zoom. Dr. Prince Pambo has also joined us. Mr. Enimado will join us shortly. But I'm sure you quickly want to touch on some of the questions from Derek. That have and Fifi that have just coming on the stimulus packages. They're saying that some of the clubs will have to put their players and all together whilst the talk is going on. Is there some support from government and FIFA? You say you're still talking
so what
that.
happens basically is that clubs are businesses and players are sort of employed, and that is how come clubs groom players. Some are sort of traded, to teams either within the country or outside the country and all of that. So they have a regime where there is some level of remuneration for players. However, this remuneration is derived from participation in the league, getting sponsorship, their share of gate proceeds and all of that. We all know that since the pandemic broke out, we have not played games, and therefore there are no proceeds. If some teams had sponsorship, well, we know the state of our football and the fact that the sponsorship has not been forthcoming over the period.
Some say it's not been attractive. That's why.
Yes, because of the controversy and the problems that have engulfed the industry over the period, and that is why I said that it's heartwarming that we're in an era where there are new trends, and what happens with sponsorship is that the sponsor looks for what I call eyeballs. Yeah. So either on TV or in the stadium. And once you get fans to sit in the stadium, or you get that networking around the country where people are watching on TV, then the advertiser comes in and also advertises the product. So sponsorship in sports or football is not necessarily like giving a stimulus package or giving grants to teams. It's business. Yeah. So football or sports attracts the people, and the advertisers place, the product. Once that is not happening, definitely teams are not going to make money. And that is why people are calling for what government is doing, and that is why I said that so far what government has done is to target everyone. And we are moving to a stage where we're going to target more sectorally by approaching, and that is why I've also said that in the past couple of days there have been discussions on all of these things in terms of how teams are doing, how the clubs are doing, what they need to be able to survive moving forward before the leagues, sort of begin. Whether or not they are going to play a top 4 or whatever, or whether or not there's going to be a departure from the current league table that we have. All of this is going to be determined moving forward based on what kind of package that these federations are going to get. And once that is sorted, I believe that then a rollout plan as to when the league will start again, when other sporting disciplines can begin to train. Don't forget, our kids are not in school. Yeah. Where we get a lot of raw talent from is from schools, and the inter-schools and colleges has not been held, and therefore all of these sporting activities are on hold. It sort of has derailed what usually will give us talent and what usually will give us money for the clubs, and for these clubs to be able to pay sort of their players. I believe that as we speak, when the football people come in, they'll be able to tell us whether they're able to pay their players or not, because I know very well that case is being made across the table at the ministry. It is now dependent on us as to how much we can raise at government level in order to be able to support them.
But talk of payment, though, that the payment of Kwesi Appiah has been very topical this week. We've heard the FA say that it's actually the ministry that's supposed to make that payment. That's a controversy that we'll be touching on shortly. But let me quickly, you want to go that so that I quickly bring in Dr. Prince Pampo?
Okay, what happens is that there's a sponsorship package that goes to the FA. However, the sponsorship package is channeled through the ministry. And therefore, as part of that, coaches are paid from that. Money suspended on national teams are paid from these sponsorship monies. In certain cases, when the sponsorship money is not enough to pay for national teams and all of that, government actually pays for these things. The case it's been the case that before the termination of the contract of Mr. Kwesi Appiah, there have been some arrears, and those arrears have arisen due to certain issues that have come up in the last couple of months. I know that the ministry is in talks with Kwesi Appiah, and at the appropriate time, once the issues are ironed out, he will be paid.
Okay, we'll follow that closely. But Mr. Marco Afajino, thank you very much for joining us via Zoom. Dr. Prince Pambo, a member of the CAF medical team, also joining us, and Mr. Samuel Enimado, who is an executive council member of the GFA, also joining us via Zoom. Thank you very much, and welcome, gentlemen, to Beyond the Lockdown.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay. Do I hear the sound of Dr. Prince Pambo? I would want to start with you, a member of the CAF Medical Committee. What has been the talk at the top there when it comes to opening up football, for instance?
Please, can you come again? There seems to be some noise.
Okay, so I'm asking if you can hear me once again, Dr. Prince Pambo. I'm saying you're a member of the CAF Medical Committee. What's the talk at that level when it comes to opening up football once again?
Right, thank you very much, and a very good evening to your viewers. So at the level of continental football doesn't control any particular league. CAF has its own sanctioned games, but CAF, again, doesn't own any country, or CAF doesn't own any football pitch anywhere. So what it means is that CAF will still need the permission of various countries for the game of football to start. So what we have done at the level of CAF is, yes, communications have gone out there to member associations to communicate to CAF, depending on what is on the ground, the kind of discussions they're having with various government and the health authorities. Are they in the position to play any football, continue with league, cancel it? A number of countries have responded by saying their leagues have been truncated, so they will rather sit back and plan a new league, probably August, September-ish. Others have asked for extension of time to engage, and I think the Ghana Football Association falls into that bracket. At the medical point, what we have done is we advise CAF ESCO to cancel all CAF tournaments, be it the CHAN, which was supposed to be played, and the various CAF Champions League matches and Confederation matches. Again, we have put together a document which very soon will be circulated to member associations. So depending on what the situation on the ground will allow you to do, depending on what your government will allow you to do. Let me just reiterate this, that football was not stopped by football people. I mean, in Ghana, the government stopped football. I mean, the president stopped football. And it's going to take only the president to be able to say that, okay, I've lifted these restrictions so you can organize XYZ activities. Then, of course, depending on the financial muscle of the various federations, they can decide to go into the expensive venture. So what we have done from the medical point of view at the level of CAF is to design a document with guiding principles. So if you opt to want to play your games in an empty stadium, then we're going to give you this requirement, a minimum level of requirement you need to meet, because we also feel the safety of players, technical men, media, and anybody associated with football is supreme. And the FIFA president is on record as saying that football would only have to resume, or sport will only have to resume when there is zero risk. This is the position of Gianni Infantino, that it is not worth sacrificing any individual life for sports. So it's on record. So we've put together these records, these guidelines, which will be given to member associations. So depending on what you choose, then you have to follow the guidelines. If you also decide to want to play with restricted number of fans in the stadium, we've also designed guiding principles which will be given to various member associations. And then at the continental level, we would monitor to see if you are strictly following this. So, and I think the FA Medical Committee has also done a good job by designing some documents for the FA to follow. So, I mean, I think one of your contributors put it there that basically, one, you have to quarantine all the football clubs in hotels. So all players, all technical men, or anybody associated with the team, the drivers and everybody. So we call it airtight regulation. So these people don't have any kind of interaction with the outside world. And then you have to keep them aside so they can do the trainings well, interact with each other, because you can't observe social distancing. I mean, if you look at the Bundesliga, you see players sitting on the bench, social distancing. Then they go on the pitch and they can hug. I mean, who are we tricking here? You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's impossible. So if you are taking such decisions, you should know the decisions you are taking and go in for it head on. So you have to quarantine your players. You have to do like weekly testing, get results. And you see, before you even want to do that, what we have proposed from the point of CAF is that you have to do what we call a comprehensive pre-competition medical assessment. Mind you, these players have been out of sport for over 2 months. And you see, this is not even a normal break. And Oliver will tell you, when the players come home from major seasons and are home, I mean, they have time to go to the gyms, they have time to play some games, they train here and there. So by the time the league even wants to start, they go for a 2-week preseason and they are on. But in this particular instance, they are home and they are home. The players are not able to train well, they are not able to do anything. And research, scientific research has come out to prove and confirm that when players, any player who has contracted COVID-19 and gotten treated, that player stands a higher risk of suffering a cardiac arrest during play. So we, the medics in football or in sports, have now turned our light on the pre-competition medical assessment you have to do before allowing these players to play. And I believe every player, every sports person listening to me now, it is your right to demand that comprehensive medicals be done for you before putting you on that pitch to go and play. And so this will be, cardiovascular assessment, blood works, and all of that. If you want me to just add the financial bit, it will cost a minimum of $150 to do this for one player. If each club is supposed to even register 30 players, you are looking at $4,500, so $4,500 for each club to be able to do just medicals. And even that, we the medical people, for a love of the game, we normally will waive off our professional fees so clubs can be able to pay this. So this is expected. So there's a lot to be done before we can really get our game back as we want to do. And I believe the sports minister deputy is there. The FA executives are there. Everybody's watching and they can do it. So yes, at the point of CAF, this is what we have done. We have our position. We know what we feel is ideal. But CAF cannot take any decision for any member association. The leagues are on their own. So we throw it to you. We bring you the guidelines. Every member association has a competent medical committee, and Ghana there's one. So they then set and decide and then advise the executive committee and then supervise to ensure that the right thing is done. But we at the point of CAF would say that there should be what? No risk, so that nobody's life is put at
endangered.
risk.
Okay. Well, Dr. Prince Pambo there, he's a member of the CAF Medical Committee, quite comprehensive. But I'll go to you, Mr. Afajino. We know that table tennis has been hit also, just like any other sport. But how hard have you been hit, you would say?
In many ways than we had imagined. Because what it is that once at home, you don't get a chance to play. You don't get a chance to, as it were, live a very important aspect of your life. And all the consequences in terms of personal wellness, in terms of the financial well-being, in terms of social cohesion, in terms of economic activity, we are paying several prices at many multiple levels. Again, the consequences for us regarding the plans we had for the year, the arrangements we had in place for financing, the well-being of the players, of the officials, because a lot of them are semi-professionals and a lot of them are doing this on voluntary basis. And so what it means for them, what it means for their upkeep, their remuneration, and again, the opportunities that we've had to forego. And even bigger than everything is the uncertainty about the next steps forward. Because if it is that we had some clarity and we were very sure about what tomorrow is going to bring and what we are able to do in the next month, in the next 2-3 months, then it would have provided some sort of settlement. But we don't have all that now. So we're operating in a very wide open space. We're dealing with a lot of unknowns, and we're just learning how to adjust and adapt very quickly.
Okay. Well, quickly though, there's a question for you, Mr. Malco Afajino, that has just come in. We'll take it quickly at this point. There's a question that to Mr. Malco Afajino. Let's take it quickly. This is from Yusuf. It says, you pay attention during this COVID-19 and it's loud the cries of the main investors and architects of sport, i.e. club administrators, players, coaches and workers around sport, about not having enough money to sustain them during these difficult times. It's a problem of how low we have commercialized sports in Ghana. What lessons can we learn from this situation going forward on commercialization of sports and individuals within it? Mr. Afajino, this one came in for you. And there's another one, I'll box it together. This one says, as president of one of the lesser known, lesser invested sports, i.e. table tennis, what would you use this platform to draw the attention of government to improving the fortunes of table tennis and the others? This one is from Ebenezer. Two-in-one question boxed together for you, Mr. Afajino.
I like that question. It flows with a very passionate subject for most of the sports administrators in this country. And it's getting the right balance between the commercialization of sports and the humanization of sports. And, you know, what COVID-19 has done is to magnify the flaws, the fault lines we've had in this country. It's really puts the lenses on sports administration, not just sports administration, but on the entirety of our country, and not just our country. Maybe you could even extend it and say the globe, the world together as one entity. Now, yes, it is the case that most of the people who live off sports basically are just a little bit over the living wage. It's so very difficult for most practitioners and for most professional athletes in this country to live reasonably well off their earnings from sports. You would have an exception maybe being football, but even if you went into football, you'd find that the majority of the people of the professionals or the semi-professionals in football barely get paid enough compared to what they will be earning outside the country, which then leads into the other issue of the massive talent trade and the flow of talent from Ghana elsewhere. Now, so back to the question. The first question is that the guys in sports, our professional athletes, are not paid enough. We don't earn enough to give them enough. We don't take adequate care of them as we should. And it's also in part because the structures, the revenue streams are so inadequate. Primarily, the burden is on the shoulders of government, which is not the case elsewhere, where you have a sort of a blend of different revenue sources feeding into the pipe, which is then used to take care of professional athletes and people who work in the sports industry. But that is not the case now. And with COVID, maybe it's also a big chance for us to sit down, reflect, ask the right questions, and rechange the model. Because going forward, what we did in the past didn't quite suffice in the past and will be woefully inadequate going into the future when tomorrow comes. So I would agree very much with the questioner that we need to overhaul the entire model, especially in terms of funding sources, especially in terms of how we are able to give value back to the society and also give value back to corporates, because that is how we're going to get enough money coming in response to take care of the needs of our athletes and to make sure that they live the quality of life that their talent should be given them.
Well, Mr. Afajino, well said. I'll go now to Samuel Enimado. Finally, we have the all clear to go to him. He's the Executive Council member of the Ghana Football Association. Many of the questions have coming for your association. Mr. Enimado, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Lockdown. So the issue about what will happen in terms of the proposals you're making as an association, we know that CAF has also invited some form of, input from your association, for instance. What have you put out to them in terms of giving to government? We know football was not put on hold by football people, but by government. What have you done, or what kind of processes have you put in place, we should say?
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening to your listeners. What I can say is we've been engaging the stakeholders, government especially. You saw the president had a meeting, several meetings with the task force and and then our medical team too has been engaging, like Dr. Pambo said, they've also been engaging all the professionals that they need to. So at this level, what we are waiting for is for government and the team to give us the clearance. Because if it comes back to what we have done, we've engaged our higher body, that's FIFA and CAF, and then like the president said, that we are waiting for what FIFA will give to us for COVID, so that we use it to support clubs. Clubs are suffering. I'm a club owner also. I'm also suffering. If you can imagine this Eid Mubarak time, most of our boys who are Muslims, we were supposed to be giving them something to help them in celebrating this. You ask yourself how many clubs can give that support to the boys at this particular time. So we've really been hit, and what I can say is that I'm also very happy that the president gave that directives, and then all of us followed. The only thing we are only waiting for is for the fact that when they give us the clearance, and we all put the right structures in place with our medical team giving the guidance, like Dr. Pambo says, it is clear that no matter how you put the structures together, somebody will touch somebody in the course of the game. But you can also see that it is clear that they are trying to avoid as much contact as possible. So all we will do is to make sure each and everyone will follow. If we are supposed to bring the game back, each and everyone will follow the procedure, the protocols, and make sure that we reduce contact as much as possible. If in 1918, when the pandemic came, they played football, they had face masks and all that, we can also do it now because we are more advanced now.
Well, there's some interesting questions for you also, Mr. Enimado. We'll quickly go to it via WhatsApp, I'm told. This one from Emily says, as we wait for the advance payment of FIFA operational costs for FIFA Forward 2.0 and FIFA COVID relief funds monies, what is the plan of the GFA in maximizing allocations of these monies to ensure that we have used these monies well enough? And that's the question from Emily, this issue about the advancement of FIFA payment. And then Riafi says, sectors like traders went through the Trade Unions Congress, hospitality companies went through the tourism authorities, to mention a few, in getting listed for government stimulus packages for the but the GFA went directly to government. Is that to highlight lack of government regulatory body over clubs' businesses? And is the FA ready to accept a legislative instrument making the National Sports Authority serve as regulator to clubs and football as a whole? Quite some questions there for you. And this one from Shika says the GFA have presented a proposal to government through the Ministry of Youth and Sports to ask for help, that the stimulus packages for its members, clubs during this financially stressful times. What has this journey revealed as challenges in getting government to understand the impact of football to our society and economy? Mr. Enimado, 3-in-1 question for you. So I'm sure we'll take it from the stimulus packages, and then also whether you are ready to be regulated by the National Sports Authority, amongst others.
Yes, with the stimulus package, they said it clear. We made our proposal through the ministry. That is the only way we can't go through any other means. We have a process, the procedure to follow. We can't change and say that we are going through another means. So The only means is to go through the ministry. And that is what we've done. And we've had very, 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 very good interactions with the ministry. I remember when our president met, we had a meeting, he told us the kind of interaction, the kind of feedback he's getting from government is very positive. But at the end of the day, the clubs will always be agitating that we are suffering. It's normal because everybody is having it difficult. If you ask me what are plans for that fund, the president stated emphatically clear that the money will go to the clubs. When that particular relief fund comes from FIFA, and that's our mother body, it will go to clubs. We are not going to say that, no. It is clear that clubs will be the main beneficiaries of that money. When it comes to the one government, we have made proposals to government. It's the same thing. Okay. If it comes to ourselves, we are also preparing and planning. So you are saying beyond the lockdown, we are also preparing football after COVID.
Okay.
What are we going to do? What innovative strategies are we going to put in place to make sure that even if we have to play football again, we may not have it the same that we had it. And so maybe a vaccine comes and it's officially approved for everybody to know that everybody is vaccinated, so you can now go to stadiums. I remember when we were going to Brazil and South Africa and all those things, we were asked to vaccinate each one and then one another. So it is all part of the plans. But you can't be specific now to say that this particular plan is what you are going to use, because you only plan ahead and make sure that if you get a go ahead, the plans that you put in place, you now put it before your Congress, your clubs, and when it's accepted, then you can make use of it. But when it comes to the legal framework, the legal issues, it's government. We have no power.
But there was a direct question. There was a direct question asking whether you are ready to accept a legislative instrument making the National Sports Authority serve as regulator of clubs and football as a whole.
That's very difficult because football runs through, and the highest body is FIFA. Okay. You understand me? So that regulative body being a National Sports Authority will always be difficult. The kind of partnership that we have with National Sports Authority, the kind of marriage that we have with government, I think is one of the best, because apart from that, if we say we are veering from FIFA, what are we going to do? Because FIFA has also given us clear rules that we are supposed to follow. Like when FIFA's money came for FIFA Forward, you have rules to follow. You can't veer off it. So it's the same thing. If we are supposed to maintain our membership as an MA of FIFA, there's no way we can change that. But there can be a way to improve the structure, the system. If there's a way to improve it, that one will welcome it, because I know all clubs will welcome that.
Okay. So there was an earlier question also about top four, bottom four. What will happen to the league? Are you considering doing either the top four or the bottom four to ensure that we complete the league like has been done elsewhere? That's the question that came in earlier also.
This particular one is still under consideration. So I will hold on to that, because we are still considering. That's what we give clubs end of June. That a decision will be taken. So for that one, I'll leave it to that level, because that's the decision we've taken so far until we get to that particular day.
Okay. Well, Mr. Ferry Okudzeto is also with us here in the studio. But there's no football without drumming, dancing, noise making, and sometimes even people calling the players on the pitch and insulting them at a point. But we've been interacting with Joseph Langabell. He's the chief drummer. Here are his thoughts on what has happened to sports.
How has the pandemic affected your job?
Charlie, so fundamental disease. Charlie, it was so bombasted. Because let me tell you something, this coronavirus is spoiled so many things, especially the football terrain. You see, some of us, football, when we get our daily bread, when we chop, now everything is the low down popcorn. Charlie, this thing all is pandemic.
I want you to tell me, what would you have been doing between, let's say, March and today? Where would you have gone to? Black Stars have qualifiers to play and all of that.
Oh yes, right now, like we are going to play against Sudan, and last 2 months, but because of the virus, everything ceased. The blaster coach himself, Nana, is in the house. There's no way to monitor any player because there's no any football in the whole world. Brother, social distance, when we are talking, is something like a talk of marvelous. You understand me? Although they are saying about social distance. But when you watch even though the whole world is same, the social distance is not counting. Brother, the German people say they don't know what they are doing. Serious matter. They are rushing. They are rushing. They are not alone in this world. They are not alone in the football country. The sickness come. We have to make sure that are they play the matches to go and play who? Have you heard that Trump say America should play something? Yeah. Nothing. No. Because America self still, they are crying. They are crying of the disease. Ghana football stay 1 year without football. Am I lying? We die.
And that's Joseph Langabell. Ghana stay 1 year without football. We die. We didn't die. Okay. But we can hear from Mr. Herbert Mensah, and he is the president of the Ghana Rugby Association. He mentioned that they had to rush through the process to complete their league. Here's what he told us earlier.
I think the reality for us in Ghana Rugby is that we always try and look. We understand that we are one of the lesser known sports, although we've been massively successful. But we understand that sports is big business. I mean, that's the way that we've always looked at sports. And for those of you who've followed some of our movements over the last 20 years, you'll understand that's how the approach we've taken with football and everything else. Understanding that rugby is a sport where it's even more difficult to raise money, football is pretty straightforward. We had to plan in advance. We had to be aware of the fact that come late January, we needed to move very quickly with everything that we're doing, because the world is about cash flow. If you didn't manage your situation in anticipation of COVID-19, which many sports did not, then you end up with a situation where there are lockdowns, and yet it is you still got commitments to your sponsors. TV, other sponsors demand their pound of flesh. So with rugby, what we did is that we rushed our league through. By beginning of March, we had finished our league. We declared our winners. We'd handed out medals, given out trophies, etc., etc. And therefore, the cash flow issue for Ghana Rugby was not as large as for others. We did not have to answer back to sponsors in quite the same way. But what we found that we've had to do is to manage the relationships, which is what we've tried to do. COVID-19 has really provided a little bit of an issue for us in terms of how we manage our sport here in Ghana. But we continue. We're having our meetings, our board meetings. We, like others, are using Zoom and other means to communicate and to have meetings. We have disciplinary meetings going on, and we are planning for the future. How we then look at sports going forward. How do we appeal to the sport from a sponsor's viewpoint and that kind of thing? We have to think out of the box going on, knowing that there is no set date for us to be able to resume the sport that we love. And I think if there is a fund that comes available for all sports, not just football, for all sports, then we'll be quick to try and pass that down to others. What we've been trying to do at the same time is encourage new skills and practices. So at the bottom line, people like myself have learned to cut my own hair. We've got others who are doing online courses. Africa Rugby has got online courses for referees and coaches.
So just like many other businesses, our business, which is a sports and events company, is really struggling under these circumstances. We've been at home for over 3 months now, and for us, we had to cancel the biggest sporting events we had in our calendar because just the day before we had our events, we had the first 2 cases in Ghana, and we immediately decided to cancel the events because we felt that the health and safety of all the participants and everyone involved, in our company and our business was more important. So we just had to cancel the events, and for the past 3 months, we've just had to stay at home and watch the news and watch what is happening. Sports around the world is suffering, and it's not just the sports businesses, but it's also the other businesses in the value chain. So for example, for us, we deal with a lot of other companies, advertising companies, we deal with event services companies, sporting facility companies, and all these people currently are out of business because they can't operate. Unfortunately for us in Ghana, we do not have any access to any incentives because personally, as I'm at home, I feel like we have an ethical responsibility to take care of our staff because there are no sporting jobs anywhere. So even if you lay off your staff, where are they going to get jobs?
And that one was Kathy Morton. She's the organizer of the Kiddie Mile race and then other sporting events as well, the Millennium, race and all. She's the organizer of that. She's been telling us about the impact on it. You also heard Herbert Mensah earlier. He's the president of the Ghana Rugby Association. Oliver Arthur is a football agent, or should I say a sports agent. He joins us also via Zoom. Oliver, you've also been hit. There's no sporting event. How are you coping?
Hi, good evening to your listeners. I am a football agent. Sports is too broad. Yes, okay. So it's really affected us also. Now, instead of thinking about the transfer market, you are thinking about how you negotiate for player pay cuts. You're thinking about contract extension to clubs countries who still want to play the league. You are thinking about how you're coping with the pressure of players calling you every day because normally if they are busy, you don't keep in touch with them daily. But now it's on regular basis. They call you every single day. So we are in the new normal now. That's what is being said everywhere. And then we're not sure how all this is going to eventuate. What we're doing now is trying as much as possible to keep the players still busy and active. My main market is the Italian market.
Okay.
Every day the days change. Wikia is going to start on the 15th of June. Then medical advice and then consultation comes up and they say, no, it's not going to start again. We want to wait till 18th of June. It's been changing by the day. So we still don't know the way forward, how it's all going to pan out. We are still in the dark as in the way forward. We're already in May and FIFA has not really come up with when the transfer window is going to open, when we're going to have the transfer markets. So we're still not sure of the next steps of what is even going to happen the next day. So it's a bit different now from the normal way we're doing our business. Well, this may be the new normal, but do you have a plan once the transfer window is open? For instance, post-COVID, you have a plan? For post-COVID, the reason why I'm saying we're not very sure about the way forward now is the league. We don't know whether the league is going to start or not. Yeah. And secondly, going to post-COVID, when the league resumes and we know that Italian league is playing, then we know the clubs are going to let us know how they're going to go about the next season in terms of the transfers. For example, clubs that normally were asking for players and buying players now have started asking for players on free transfer, players swapping of players. So it's not going to be the normal transfer where players are going to be bought with high figures on the market, even though some clubs still might be able to do that because they are investors who are not affected by this COVID. They are investors who don't receive money directly from football. Yeah. So for them, I don't think it's going to be much of a problem. But there are a lot of clubs who are thinking about swap deals and then free players. I was saying the other time that this is a very good opportunity for the African market because we are seen as the market where clubs can get players at very good rates. At the same time, the quality is good. So this is a good market that I think the clubs in Ghana, in Africa, unfortunately, our league hasn't started. We don't know whether our players can be active towards the transfer window when it really comes up. So it's something that it's very difficult to put a finger on it that this is how the market is going to pan out.
Okay. Oliver Arthur there, that's a football agent, the perspective also of a football agent. All sectors, like I said, have been hit by this. Mr. Okujeto, so listening to the various industry players at this point, it tells you how enormous the situation is. So going forward, as you go back to the table, the drawing table, and then as you are in government, what can you tell us as to what will change post-COVID, for instance, once the floodgates are open, what will change? What will be different?
Well, we are very much aware of the enormity of what has hit us. And it is not just in the sports sector, but it cuts across sectors. Yeah. And that is why we have tried to listen to the plight of industry players and to see in what ways we can help moving forward after COVID. And if you listen to the various personalities that have spoken, it tells you and paints a really gloomy picture about what the situation at hand is. Sports, for instance, in Ghana, is a broad sector. I believe that people just think about football and that's it. But sports, like you have shown, cuts across from the hawker who sells
the PK and everything,
PK and water at the stadium, to the person who mans the gate, to the various people who man the league, to the teams,
the camera technicians,
the media, the commentators, the vendors, to managers, sports administrators, and it cuts across 40 plus federations. Yeah. Football is just one. The Ghana football, for instance, employs, I'm sure, about 5,000 plus people. So it is really a sector that we must pay some attention to, and that is why government is taking the lead in engaging stakeholders to make sure that the right thing is done and we find ways of cushioning, especially our athletes and our players. However, moving forward, MFA, I think that we need a new direction, and we need to look at the structure of sports in Ghana. Over the period, what you notice is that sports, apart from politics, has become like the mainstay when it comes to especially discussions in the media.
Of course.
However, sports, if we look at the story of countries that have made a lot of strides and are very successful and have multi-billion dollars from sports, there is a certain approach. The approach is that there's a lot of marketing, branding, and promotion, merchandising, and a lot of event management when it comes to sports. In Ghana, what you see mostly is controversy and acrimony about one matter or the other. What happens is that at the end of the day, sponsors step back because sponsors don't want to attach their brand to controversy. And that is what I believe has contributed to the lack of monetary derivatives over the period. And therefore, I believe that post-COVID, all of us as stakeholders should sit down, you media people, as policy makers, the stakeholders like the federations and the confederations, we all sit down and ask ourselves, where do we want to go post-COVID? And how do we get our sports to generate the kind of revenues that it generates in other countries? We know that fans in Ghana are very committed to the sports that they love. Yeah. It is not different from what we see in other countries. But how is it that we have fans in Ghana watching the Bundesliga, watching the EPL, watching the Serie A and the rest of it, and yet they do not pay as much attention to what we do locally? And I believe that is why I said earlier that we have started a new journey, and I see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. How do we all as stakeholders come to the table to support? And that is why government, for instance, during the normalization process, helped in investing in the special competition. That is why today, as we speak, government is still engaging the various stakeholders in looking at how much we can put in to be able to revive the sport. Even that, some people have a problem with it, because people say that, why is it that somebody is running a business and is coming to government to be able to fund it? The arrangement within the sports sector is a bit complicated. It's complicated in the sense that people form federations and are affiliated to international federations. You don't have direct control over their activities. However, there are national teams that represent your country, and you get your stock of athletes or players from the activities of these private federations who are regulated by international federations. What we have adopted in Ghana, and if you go across the continent to meetings, conferences at the ministerial level in the sports sector, you would see that Ghana has a very unique management style when it comes to these things, because there's a lot of acrimony across other countries in the continent, because governments have sought to exercise a certain level of control on sports. Yes, you are policymakers, you regulate in a certain way, but you must regulate in a way that builds, consensus rather than always, fighting. So I think that we are on we are in a good place. In the last couple of years, government of Ghana has made one of the largest investments in the sports sector. As I speak to you, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, through the National Youth Authority, is building 10 stadia across the country in the old 10 regions. We're hoping that moving forward, when these are completed, the 6 new regions will also get their facilities.
Are they almost completed?
Yes.
With them?
The initial completion date was supposed to be July. However, during the lockdown process and what has happened during the pandemic, there has been some revision to that. Hopefully, they'll be completed before the end of the year. But the point...
I'll come to you, so you wrap up, Mr. Okudzeto. We have some few minutes to go. I'll come back, then I can have your closing thought. But let's hear from Stephen Appiah, and then, of course, Felix Annan, who is the captain of the Kumasi Asante Kotoko Football Club. Quickly.
But it's very, very difficult to play without fans. Talking about social distancing, we can't gather ourselves. So it has affected the foundation. The other day I was watching CNN, and some of the scientists, they don't even know what is going to happen, how the future is going to hold. So we are just praying, and we hope that, as I said, we'll go to our normal life.
Football is always going to be football, but the feelings and the changes, is going to change a little bit, because, there's going to be so much implications. People are going to fear, because of the COVID, but we don't know if the COVID, is going to, how long it's going to take for the COVID to go. So we are still hoping that things will get back to it, but I don't think, from the start, things are going to be the same like we used to have. But hopefully, things will change very well, and then we'll be back to normal football as we all know.
Well, so that's the former captain of the Black Stars, Stephen Appiah, earlier. And then also you heard from Felix Annan, who was the captain of Kumasi Asante Kotoko Football Club. And football will never be the same again, like he said. Mr. Okudzeto, in wrapping up, you're talking about building a better consensus between your outfit and then also the various sports industries. So let's wrap up on that note. You were making a final point on that, then we can wrap up.
So the point I'm making is that government, especially by the vision of the President, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we all know that he's been a sportsman himself. He's been there, he knows what these things take. And with the leadership from the ministry by Honorable Isiama, is seeing a certain level of investments and restructuring of our sports sector. We have won the bid to host the African Games next in 2023, and we are working hard to put up an Olympic-sized stadium for that tournament, besides the 10 facilities that we're building as we speak. In the last 2 years, for instance, we've hosted the Women's African Cup of Nations, we've hosted the ITTF Juniors, we've hosted a tennis world tour that was sponsored by Magdan. So it tells you that Ghana is beginning to rebrand, and Ghana is taking a new step in a new direction to attract all these, competitions to Ghana. We just had a couple of months ago, before COVID, a continental swimming competition here at the Smith Emporium. These are the things that we will do to improve on our facilities, to improve on our athletes and our players, and to be able to attract the necessary sponsorships into our sector and to bring more money into sports in Ghana. And what we need is the support of the media and the general public to make sure that our sports gets better. We're grateful for your time. Mr. Perry Curtis Kwabla Okujeto is the Deputy Youth and Sports Minister. We also had on Malko Afajinu, President, Ghana Table Tennis Federation. Dr. Prince Pambo is a member of the CAF Medical Committee. Samuel Enimado is Executive Council member of the Ghana Football Association. We wish Keto Kweku a speedy recovery. We are told he's unwell, so he was unable to join us. And for all those of you that joined us, we are indeed grateful for your time here on Beyond the Lockdown. On behalf of the entire production team, we say a big thank you for your company tonight. This is a discussion that definitely we'll have once again. Look out for the next edition of Beyond the Lockdown every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Thanks so much for your company. I am MF Apao.